Hey guys, Esther here again. I'm not posting Battlefield 3 videos today. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about my past. You see, Battlefield is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. The Battlefield franchise has been out for 10 years. And I've been playing Battlefield for 10 years now. In fact, I've been playing since the multiplayer demo came out in August of 2002. And even though this may sound a bit weird, Battlefield 1942 changed my life. It really did. It really was sort of the coming of age for me going into adulthood. You see, I was, 17, 18 at the time when the game came out. And before I go on, I really talk about what I was like, what I was into in high school. If you look at any given weekend, I was at a LAN party. I was one of those guys. My brother and I would go to LAN parties nearly every week. And we'd even host LAN parties in our basement every other week, every 3 weeks, that kind of thing. And we went there because we loved playing with other people. We loved playing multiplayer. We played the whole gambit of games. We played Counter-Strike and StarCraft and Quake and Tribes and Age of Empires. We played all these games and we really enjoyed all of them. And when we had LAN parties, we had real deal LAN parties. We had 5 to 7 other people come to our house, set up their computers in our basements before LCD screens. Everyone had big CRT monitors, and we'd have to run extension cables throughout all portions of the house, and they'd all be snaking down the basement staircase just so we wouldn't blow a fuse because we're drawing that much power. We would play for 16 hours straight, that kind of thing. Get some pizza, drink some soda. It was just a lot of fun. And we did this almost the entirety of my high school experience. It was my senior year in high school, and it was the summer of me going into it. And one of our friends downloaded a video. And this was before YouTube, and so it was like sort of Napster, like where you move file transfers back and forth. And he had downloaded this video that was a video showcasing the Battlefield 1942 single-player demo. Now, we had never heard of Battlefield 1942 before, but we watched this video, and it was meant to be a comedy. It was a Battlefield 1942 video scored to M&M's Without Me. And it was a bunch of the BF 1942 British and German soldiers headbanging back and forth. I mean, it was really, really weird looking. But they were sort of headbanging to the beat of the song, and they were in vehicles while doing this, and so it looked really goofy. They were driving, with their hands on the steering wheel, and yet they were headbanging, and it was really weird. But it was really funny, but also a bit mesmerizing. The reason being was that this was a game that was set in sort of a World War II time frame, which is something we were all interested in. We had played the first Call of Duty, we'd played Medal of Honor, we played Day of Defeat. We enjoyed those games. But this actually had vehicles. You could drive these Jeeps and these half-tracks around, and that was something that we had never seen before in that kind of setting. Now, we had played Tribes 1 and Tribes 2, so we liked the vehicles. We played those games a lot. We were actually anticipating for a game like this, and it was called Team Fortress 2. And I'm not talking about the Team Fortress 2 of now, where it was sort of cartoonish and satirical and such. No, when Team Fortress Classic came out, Valve released some sort of preview screenshots, and these screenshots showcased a very different Team Fortress 2. It was very gritty. It was a modern-day sort of combat simulator. It had personnel carriers. It had helicopters. It never came out. It was shelved. But this game looked different. This game looked like it had this sort of sandbox kind of experience that we were all sort of looking forward to. And eventually we got the demo in August of 2002, and we were hooked. No doubt, that was the only game we ended up playing at LAN parties from that point on, playing that demo. And the demo was only out for about a month and a half before the official game came out, but we played days worth of time into that demo on Wake Island. And I don't know what was about it. Maybe it was because of its sandbox sort of feel where you could do anything you want to do, or combined arms element where you could drive a Jeep or drive a tank or be an infantry guy or fly a fighter aircraft or fly a bomber or drive a ship. We there was sort of appeal about this because everyone could have a role that was specialized to them, to what they wanted to play. They could still contribute to the team because it had this rock, paper, scissors philosophy, which we see this day in current Battlefield games. So my brother and I would drive the tanks around. We had a few friends that were sort of ace pilots, and they would dogfight one another for hours on end. We had a bunch of infantry guys. And of the 8 to 10 of us that went to LAN parties regularly with one another, we all had roles. We even had a guy who loved taking the destroyer on Wake Island. He would move it around and get to full speed ahead. And he would ram it right into the beach of the Wake Island, and he would beach it. And as he would beach it, he would do it at such an angle that it would eventually tip a little bit towards the island. And that was just enough of an angle that he could take the main guns of his destroyer and swing them around and then fire huge bombardments onto the island. The explosions in BF-942, the impact that they did, were really larger than anything we see in current Battlefield games. If you can imagine sort of what the rocket artillery does in BF3 in terms of that big blast radius it does after all 6 missiles hit, that was the explosion radius of one of the shells. And these things would shoot, 3 or 4 shells at a time, all in simultaneously. You could destroy entire swaths of the map with these explosions. And this guy loved to do it, and it was so funny to watch. Because you see this tank, trying to defend the point, and then this big artillery bombardment comes over the ridge line and blows him up. It was so cool. Those kind of Battlefield moments where it was just sort of larger than life, like, wow, we can do that? That's sort of, the only limit was to our imagination of what we could accomplish in this game. Eventually the full game came out, and that's all we played. We played it so much. And what was really cool about having LAN parties at my brother and I's house, my younger brother, we had an SDSL connection, which was really a big deal at the time. It was 200 kilobit up and 200 kilobit down, and that was enough bandwidth to run 5 to 6 people playing online simultaneously. Or alternatively, we could have a server in the LAN party, and then 5 random people on the internet could connect to our server. That was really, really fun. And it was fun because we would all team stack. We'd jump on servers, all as a team. We'd play together. We'd PTFO. We'd dominate people. There wasn't a squad system where you could spawn on other people and things like that. So it was much less forgiving if you started losing, and we would destroy people to the point where we got banned. We got IP banned from these servers, and the problem was that we're all sharing the same IP because we're all on the LAN together, and we'd all get banned. It would be sort of funny. I can only imagine from an outsider perspective, suddenly seeing that ban hammer come down and then 5 people disconnecting at once. That's sort of what it felt like, and we felt pretty good about our skill. We each had a role that we played, and we each sort of began innovating our own sort of tactics around it. So the boat guy found it very viable to beach the boat and to be sort of this stationary gun raining down on points. We had guys that were dogfighters that figured out ways that actually capped points by doing low-level circling without getting killed somehow and capturing points that way. Or even flying into the air and until they stall. And then they'd jump out and they'd get their wrench out and they'd repair the aircraft while it was stalling, while they were still sort of floating in air. And as it falls down, they keep on wrenching until they would get to enough that they'd have to get back in, and then they would nosedive it back down and come back out of it. This kind of innovative stuff, this creativity, was only limited to your imagination because the Battlefield engine allowed you to do all these cool things. We eventually created a team, and this all took place in Kansas City, and we formed a gaming team called 117th, and we started playing competitively. We joined the major leagues at the time, which were Cal League or Cyber Athlete Amateur League, and that was the big deal. Now, we had played Cal League and OGL and Counter-Strike, Cal Open, not big leagues, just sort of playing for fun. But there was no amateur league and big league for Battlefield. It's a new game. There was just one league, so all the great teams and all the average teams were all lumped together. And we started playing against their teams and realizing that while we were pretty good, we had a lot to learn. There were things that the enemy teams were doing that just dumbfounded us in terms of pre-nating certain points because of timing, or for instance, pixel aiming artillery shots to spawn camp vehicles as they spawned in. Really things that we didn't even think about as possibilities, but were sort of tested out through trial and error, through playing one another, and then sort of honed accordingly. We kept on playing this, and we actually got all the way to the playoffs of the first season of Cal's Battlefield tournament. We got all the way to the semifinals before losing. And we lost pretty bad to some of the top teams out there. But from this experience, we really increased our ability to play and our enjoyment to play, because it wasn't just about playing the game anymore. It was about working together and coming up with new tactics and strategies and being innovative in terms of how we could accomplish our objectives in terms of capturing a point or killing dudes or whatever it may be. Eventually, Battlefield 1942 had an expansion. What was the expansion? Road to Rome. The first expansion for Battlefield 1942, and with that expansion coming out, there was an announcement. DICE and iGames and Plantronics and Shuttle were joining forces, and we're going to have the first ever Battlefield 1942 National Championship Tournament with $40,000 in total prize pool. And we were so excited. We said, you know what? We can do this. We should all join up and play, and we will do it. But there was one catch, one little catch. It was an online event in the sense that teams across America and Canada would play one another. However, all of the players had to play at sanctioned LAN center facilities, sponsored or endorsed by iGames. The closest iGames facility to Kansas City was in Columbia, Missouri, which is about a 2.5-hour drive. It's 120 plus miles away. And that was tough. Because not only did we have to go to this facility, but we had to go to it at a very specific time. And we had to be there and play and then travel back. And the match days, the match days were Tuesdays. They were Tuesdays at like 7:30. So we had to get out of school as fast as we could. We had to each get all of our computers and pack them up, and then all rendezvous at a location where we could all put our computers into 2 cars, because it was an 8v8 tournament. So it was my brother and I leading the team, and then 6 of our friends, and we had to drive 2.5 hours with computers in tow, and hopefully not violating the speed limit. And I actually ended up getting a bunch of tickets in the process. And we had to get there, play for 2 hours, win or lose, and then pack up our stuff and go back home. And this wasn't a one-time thing. This was subsequent rounds that lasted maybe 2 months. It was every other week or every 3 weeks or so. And so we made this trip 7-8 times. And this was really, really difficult, because not only did we have to do this, we were also playing in a different sort of a play style than what we were used to playing. Most competition back then was a 10 versus 10 team conquest format. In this particular game, in this tournament, it was 8v8. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, one of the interesting things about Battlefield is that the opportunity cost that you lose from putting a player in one position over another, say for instance an aircraft versus on the ground, actually has a big impact on things. One less person on the ground means one less guy fighting it out against other infantry and capturing a point. Or one less dogfighter in the air means that you may lose air superiority. Those kind of things were very difficult to sort of balance back and forth. We had a bunch of strategies and tactics that we had honed from playing in online competitions for months on 10v10 play, and we sort of had to relearn a little bit of how to play the game, and that was really what was so fun about it. We had to figure out new tactics and strategies. We had to say to ourselves, we have less resources in terms of players than what we're used to dealing with, and we need to dedicate those players more sparsely so that when we do commit someone to a certain objective or a certain role, then they become as most effective as they can. And I think that what was so different about this is that this was really the first event where there was money on the line and there was significant time and resources on the line, be it from putting all the miles in my car or the gas or just the time commitment and the sacrifice associated with that. This was the first event like this that I'd ever experienced. And this wasn't some kind of formal organized league. This wasn't a bunch of parents or coaches helping us or a manual of how you go about leading a team or creating strategies and tactics. It was all my brother and I. We had to build these relationships with these players. We had to figure out ways to communicate with one another, to come up with roles that best fit those individual players' skill sets. We had to create relationships with other teams so that we could scrimmage against them and share ideas on what would be the best way to get that victory. And none of this was guaranteed. This was all sort of real life in the sense that we were committing a significant amount of time and effort practicing 5 to 8 hours a week on this event. And some of us came from sort of that background. We're used to sort of playing and scrims and things like that, but some of our guys, about half of our team, really didn't. And so how do you accommodate that mix of players that may not be as committed about it or may not have as much skill or simply don't have the schedule for it? They have to work a part-time job or they have to study because they're taking AP classes. All of these variables were complicated things. It made it difficult to do well. But after playing this, after going to Columbia 2, 3, 4, 5 times, we ended up getting to the playoffs for this national championship. We ended up beating some of the best teams in Battlefield in this competition. And we got all the way to the finals. And yet we had doubt. We had doubt because we knew that the other team we were playing against consisted of some of the best players on the online leagues. Talking about guys from Team Paradigm Shift who later went on to win a lot of championships on their own. We had doubt. And while we had doubt, we felt like that we had a pretty good strategy for the maps we were playing against. And we ended up winning the first match on the first map and losing the second map. Went to a tiebreaker. Tiebreaker was Battle Axe. And Battle Axe was sort of the combined arms traditional Battlefield map. It had tanks. It had big tanks and small tanks. It had artillery. It had two fighter aircraft. It had AA guns. It had half tracks. It had bunkers. It had all these things. It was a very small map with a lot of trenches and barbed wire and hills and things like that. We felt pretty good about going into this map because we practiced this map a lot and we had it down. We would consistently win when we would play this online. But there were some big differences. One, we were used to playing with not only our friends locally, but also our friends online, who had varying degrees of competency in terms of their skill and the roles that they were comfortable and uncomfortable playing. Two, this was not 10v10 play like we were used to playing. This was 8v8. And so we had less players to assign roles to, and as such, we didn't fully appreciate it, that there could be some roles that perhaps we underappreciated. We ended up starting the match, and we got all the points that we needed to get, and we got them down to about half the tickets until they're dead, about 150 tickets left, and we were up by about 50. And then things started going downhill. our aircraft, our pilots, in my view, were better than they were. But they started going down. They started going down because normally when we played Battle Axe and 10v10, we had 2 or 3 guys dedicated to manning the anti-aircraft guns and manning the fixed machine guns and manning the turret guns on the tanks and shooting those enemy aircraft as they made passes. And likewise, we anticipated the other team would do the same thing. And unlike in Battlefield 3, in Battlefield 42, if you were a good shot with the machine gun turret or an AA gun, those aircraft went down fast. So even though that our dogfighters, our aces, were actually winning a lot of the battles, they were keeping our air down. And when our air went down, their air started camping our air at their spawn. And then when our air couldn't get back up, their air started camping our tanks. And then we lost. We lost the finals. The national championships, we spent all this time, all this effort getting there, only to have victory stolen from us, seized. And while there was sort of mixed reaction of all this, I was personally devastated. One of the employees at this land center came up to us shortly after losing. He said, guys, I'm glad you showed up and you played. Second place isn't bad. You each won a new computer, which is cool, and you each won $500. That's cool, and a new Plantronics headset too. So you should be happy that you won something, and come back next time. And for about half of our team, that was great. They had each won $500. Each won a new shuttle computer, little mini computer, and the second place prize was not that much different than the first place prize. First place prize got the same thing that the second place prize got, except instead of getting $500 per player, they got $750 per player. Oh man, $250 extra. And some of our guys, they were elated over that. They had never won that kind of money before in anything, let alone a video game they enjoyed playing. Now me and a few of us, it wasn't about the prizes. It was about not getting that victory, and it felt like that we hadn't accomplished anything. We put all this effort into it, and only to come out empty-handed. The car ride back was eerily silent. It was just the murmur of my old Oldsmobile barreling down the highway with a bunch of computers and my 4 other friends with me, and it was sort of offset, by an occasional comment, some positive. Oh, we still won something, that's great. Some negative, making excuses or bickering about why one of our players should have done something different. But as we got closer and closer back to Kansas City, we sort of had a change of mood. We realized that we actually had, in fact, accomplished something. We, as a gang of friends, had gotten so far in this game by being creative in the tactics and strategies that we created, by assigning roles, and by working together, by communicating, by exercising teamwork, that we got all the way up to the championships of this game that we loved to play. And after talking about that with them, I realized that it wasn't just about winning. The process, the experience of working on something that you love to work on, of building a team, of playing a game that you enjoy, is what one should strive for in life. To do what you're passionate about and enjoy not only the end result, but the process itself. For those of us that felt like that the victory was taken and that all was lost, a number of us went on to keep on playing Battlefield competitively. Ended up joining some of these very teams that beat us in previous seasons, and we ended up winning several championships across multiple Battlefield games. be it in Team d.emise or Team 20ID or Team TFS. We got our championships. We won some coin too. But even after winning all those championships years later, I'm still playing. I'm still competing. I'm still playing Battlefield because I love the game. I love the challenge. I love the process of learning how does one be a better player limited only by the constraints of the virtual environment we operate in. To me, that was a catalyst in my own coming of age into adulthood. And so, DICE, I want to thank you for 10 years of Battlefield, 10 years of a game that has certainly changed my life. And I hope that as time progresses, we'll look back another 10 years from now and say, hey, 20 years of great Battlefield. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you later.